on today. So
Okay. Well, I see folks on. So good morning. Good morning. Welcome everyone to part two of the Green Shoes Method. So as you remember last week, we had Emmanuel Green with Green Vision X sharing about marketing strategies and how to stand out with your business. There was the toolkits that we sent out to everyone, but if you are new, we will make sure that you also have access to the toolkits and feel free to ask any questions. Again, this is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel within 24 hours. That way you have access to review it again. Again, this is part of the New Mexico Minority Business Development Agency. We have a series of webinars and professional services that are dedicated directly to business owners. So if anyone is interested in having support from Emmanuel to create social media accounts, if you're not really sure how to create an Instagram account or LinkedIn or Snapchat, X, Facebook, or you do have one of those accounts and maybe they are not up to date or maybe you think they could be better, please reach out and Emmanuel can also help you think about what is the content that's going to drive people up to your social media account. So please reach out to us. We're happy to support you. And I'll pass it over to Emmanuel. So go ahead.
all right, Gabriela, thank you. Hello, everyone. Buenos dias. Good morning. Ni hao ma. So unfortunately, today my camera is deciding to be funky, so I'm not able to show myself, unfortunately, but I have a nice little picture there, so hopefully you guys can see that. And from the part one, you'll know what I look like on part one. But either way, thank you everyone for joining and looking forward to starting part two with you guys. So hopefully, if you had a chance to look at that previous one, that you got something out of it. In the workbook, like Gabriela was saying, was for so that creating a template so you can start looking and creating your marketing strategy that will go towards when you start doing your post and doing everything like that. So let me go ahead and get ready to share my screen here so we can get started with part two. All right. And Gabriela, just let me know that you can see this and that you can hear me fine.
Yeah, I can, but I can see all of the Canva page. So I'm sure when you do the
yeah, I'm getting ready to do that. Yeah.
You're good.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, main thing is that you're able to hear me and see the presentation. What I look like doesn't matter at this point. So either way. All right, guys. So part two, what we've been talking about is a strategy called the Green Shoes Method that I've developed over the years that's helped me really create an avenue for myself to stand out in my industry and help other products as well and other companies utilize this kind of method to make sure that their brand story is being told and that they're putting themselves out there in the best light, but also because there is so many different things competing for our attention nowadays on how to really make yourself different and differentiate yourself from the market, from what's out there and what you're currently doing in your industry. So today we're going to follow up from part one. The first part obviously was talking about helping you developing your green shoe strategy and also thinking about your business in a different light. So that way you could start creating the personality, start understanding and thinking of your business as a person. So today, now we're going to take all that stuff and now talk about how you implement your green shoe strategy and looking at measuring and understanding what you need to look at so you can make sure that your marketing strategy is effective, because at the end of the day, doesn't matter what you're doing out there. If it's not effective, you got to tweak it, right? You don't have to totally change everything, but you do have to tweak it. So on today's agenda, we're talking about implementing your green shoes method, measuring your method. I'm going to give you a case study where we're actually doing this currently right now with a client. And then we're going to wrap things up. So thank you for joining me today. So let's go ahead and get started. So starting off from the end, kind of like the end of part one, where we were talking about, setting realistic expectations for your marketing strategy and what you're doing. And like I said in the previous, I was telling everyone that basically, used to be take 60, 90 days to really start seeing, an uptick in what you're doing and start seeing things start working if they are working. But now, nowadays with AI, I mean, you could probably accelerate and see a lot more progress within 30 days, 30 to 60 days, as opposed to 60 to 90 days, just because with the AI and everything that's out there now, AI running your ads, a lot of different stuff. So if you're using digital on top of AI, you could probably start seeing results pretty quickly, especially when it comes to driving traffic to your pages, comes to generating leads. It's just what you're trying to accomplish, what you're doing, right? And your content has to be specific towards whatever that goal is. So, and we have to continue to understand that effective marketing is an ongoing process, right? It's not a set it and forget it type of thing. Like, don't get me wrong, when you find something that works, use it as long as you can, right? Ride it till the wheels fall off, as they say. But ultimately, every marketing strategy is going to need to change. Why? Because the market changed, trends change, a lot of things change, right? So if you're doing something that worked 6 months ago, but the market has shifted and changed, it may not be as effective now. So just understand that you're always going to have to continuously change your marketing strategy and your marketing approach. That then changes how you go about your digital, how you run ads, how you do all the different things. So with that and knowing, understanding that, especially as business owners, you can't stay on top of marketing all day, every day, right? That's just depending on where you're at and what level you are in your business. I understand we all wear all different hats, but eventually you're going to have to kind of find that resource allocation, right? Whether that be through personnel, whether that be marketing consultants like myself, whether that be social media freelancers, whatever you have to do, you got to be on top of that. So that way your focus is on your brand, focus is on the business, because marketing is ever changing. So when you get in strategy, check it every 60, 90 days and just see if it's working and what you need to tweak. And it's crucial to distinguish between marketing techniques and a comprehensive strategy. So what I'm trying to help everyone understand too, the difference between, like a social media expert, right? That's a technique, right? They'll do certain things. How you creating content. That's a technique, but a strategy is your overarching, right? It's what's driving everything you're doing. So those two different things. So don't think of your strategy as a technique. It's your overarching goal of it's your game plan, right? Of how you're going into the game, how you effectively do that on the field is different. That's your techniques, whatever you're doing on the field that gets you to the ultimate goal of winning. That's your technique, but the strategy is your game plan. So that's just the easiest way. Me being an athlete, so that's just the easiest way I can break that down for you guys. So knowing that when you're looking at your strategy, understanding the timelines, and then when you're talking about content creation, especially for social media, when you're talking about getting things together, um, getting your presence and your brand story together for your social media and your online presence, we talk about audience, right? Understanding what's going to resonate with your audience. So whatever your green shoes are, your USP, which is your unique selling proposition, right? Just a fancy word, but basically your green shoes. You have to craft everything you're doing towards the audience that's going to resonate with, right? So your target audience, you have to craft content that will make them stop scrolling. And so you can't, I talk to a lot of clients who go, well, my market, I'd say, who's your target market? And they go, everybody. That's the worst answer you can give in terms of marketing, simply because you can't cater to everybody. No matter how good your product or how good you think your product is or your service is, there's always going to be people that it's not for, people that don't like it, right? There's just nothing you can do about that. So you have to hone in on your target market and craft content specifically for them. And you can't think about like, oh, I want everybody to like what I'm doing. I want everyone to like my content. Because if you're creating in that fashion, then you're going to create a lot of generic stuff that people still not going to like anyway. So ideally, you want to find 3 pain points and interest points that would appeal to your ideal customer, and then shape everything you do off of that. And then obviously as their pain points change and their interests change, and I'm speaking towards your target audience, then you'll change your marketing approach on how you're doing that, right? But ultimately it has to go off of your target market and what appeals to that target market. And so your green shoes, especially when you're talking about being effective, you have to make sure that your green shoes appeals to that target market. So basically on part one, I talked about how my story with the green shoes, Capitol Records, and how that resonated. The only reason that worked, not only simply because obviously I wore green shoes, but it also resonated with the audience that was there, right? In the entertainment industry, it's all about standing out. So the fact that there's this guy in green shoes, and then I'm doing all this different stuff, remembering people's names, going into people's offices, doing all this stuff that resonated with them. So that's why it worked so well. It wasn't just the fact that I wore green shoes, right? So I'm just saying you have to understand the core of your marketing has to be towards a target audience. Don't just start creating without understanding who you're trying to talk to. Because at that point, you're just kind of shooting at the wall, right? You're hoping, you're going to put out a bunch of content and hope somebody sees it and hope that people start resonating. But if you don't have your target market in place, that's going to be a lot harder. So hopefully, by the end of this, and when you look at the workbook and different things that we've given in these webinars and the workshop and different things like that, that you will start to really hone in on who you're talking to and what green shoes you're going to implement towards your target audience. That's really the goal and what we're trying to hopefully get across to everyone when it comes to developing your marketing strategies and anything you're doing online, your online presence, your brand story. So all right, guys. So what we want to do especially when it comes to content creation, there's a few steps that will help you in this because, don't get me wrong, content creation is hard. It's difficult, right? I've come from an industry where content is king, and understanding now, seeing how companies have to utilize content, it's not that easy, right? People, it takes time, it takes understanding, it takes a whole lot to start thinking about this content. So one of the best ways to start when you're thinking about what kind of content to put out for your business and for your brand is, like I said, first identifying your green shoes, finding your target audience, and then coming up with ideas that resonate with that audience, right? And that effectively communicate your USP or your green shoes, right? And then once you understand that, you started content brainstorming, you started getting some ideas together on how to talk to your target market, what your green shoes are. Once you have all that together, then you start looking at where to put it, right? Because you have to create content specifically for certain platforms that can also be repurposed on other platforms. But the way you put out content on a certain platform will be different than the way you do it for another, or you can just kind of blast it on all of them. It just depends, but you want to explore various content formats. So you have blog posts, right? You have infographics, you have videos, you have social media content, and you've seen this all, right? If you on social media at all, and at any point in time in the last year, you've seen all this different type of content that's out there. Blog posts, especially like on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of people because LinkedIn is built for B2B, right? So a lot of the blog posts are informational, sharing information, get our lead book or get our strategy for this and that. So there's blog posts, infographics, sharing, that kind of information that can be helpful to your target audience. So that's a lot of that. That's where you see a lot of that go. Then obviously videos, you see a lot of that. Instagram, TikTok, that's where, that stuff lives. Short form, long form videos will sit on YouTube. So just depending on what platform that you're looking at, that's going to determine what you're doing. And you may have a mix of all this stuff. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but you have to understand where you're going to put your content and what kind of content you want to produce, right? So that's your different content formats. And then you have to make sure that whatever you're putting out is catering to that target audience. So that's why I said this is content creation. There's a lot more that goes into it than just taking a picture and making a post, right? And it can be daunting, don't get me wrong, especially if it's just you're by yourself, you don't have anybody to do this. But if you can break it down in somewhat this fashion, right? Starting with your brainstorming from the time you've identified your green shoes, right? But just brainstorming, looking at the different content formats. And then the last bit is the content calendar, which basically helps you put out the content because we all are busy people, right? We don't have time to be sitting there posting all the time. And so one of the best ways to do that is every platform now, don't know if TikTok will have to research that, but I do know like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, they all have free content planners and schedulers where basically you can now create the content and then schedule it to go out. Like I've done that already with a few of my posts. for the week, because usually Sunday is my dedicated content day. So what I'll do is whatever content have or I want to put out, I'll schedule that on Sunday so that way it rolls out during the week. So that way I can be doing whatever I'm doing and the content is going to be posting whether I'm posting it myself or not. So content calendars are very, very helpful, especially when it comes to having a plan of how you're going to roll out your content. So these content calendars are very helpful and a lot of them are free. Like I said, TikTok will have to research and see if they have a free one, but LinkedIn just recently rolled out a content calendar where you can now post, you can schedule, not really a calendar, but at least you can schedule when your posts go out. And so, like I said, this is a very important part of your content marketing, simply because you don't have time unless you're paying somebody, unless you have somebody there. And even then, that's what they're doing, right? Your social media expert, whoever you have on the team that's doing all this stuff, they're most likely utilizing in some way, shape, or form this stuff here, right? And they're scheduling your content, they're brainstorming, they're doing all this stuff. They're just doing it for you. You just don't see it. You just see your post come out and you're happy. Oh, great. But I guarantee you, like 9 out of 10 times, they're using the content calendar, doing all this stuff, because even for them, it takes a lot to constantly be posting, right? So you might as well just take some of that headache out of that. So understand that this is also part of your content creation strategy. And I'm just giving you some points, right? Some basic points to start off and then getting a little more in depth, but I don't want to get too far into that, because we really want to get into measuring and understanding how to measure and make sure that whatever you're doing, your content, your marketing strategy is effective. But just know that this is part of that. And yes, there are people out there like myself that you can come to through MBDA to help you with this stuff. But just know that this is all part of that process, right? Okay, so another thing to think about when it comes to your content is engagement and outreach, right? So, and from the first part when I was talking about communities and that two-way communication, people want to feel that they can talk to you at any point in time. People, whether you're available or not, you want to give people that impression that they can talk to you whenever they want, right? So that's why communities are very, very important and with your brand. And that's why a lot of the big guys, they're really focused on now, especially now, creating communities. And that could be a Facebook group, that could be a forum, that can be a community that you're building on your own. Regardless, communities is where it's at now. I mean, because people are starting to realize that just putting a post out there and running a few ads doesn't create community. That creates a speaker board. You're shouting at everybody, hey, look at me, look at me, look what I do, I'm awesome. But the community is really where you curate and you really start building that brand loyalty, that customer loyalty, and you start building that connection with your audience, right? So that's where you really get more into the meaningful interactions with your target audience and the two-way dialogue that makes it a conversation as opposed to me selling. That's why people hate sales and they hate salesmen, right? Because salesmen have the approach of shouting at you, telling you. The good salespeople create a two-way dialogue, right? Where you're asking questions, you don't feel like you're being sold to. And that's the same concept, right? It's just changed now, right? What you're saying on social media is the same concept. So you may not like salesmen, but what you're putting out may sound too salesy. But you don't know this, right? If you're not getting interactions, if you're not getting, just because people are liking your post, doesn't mean you're creating interactions with anybody. I mean, anybody can scroll and like your post. A true interaction is someone taking the time to interact with your content, whether that be a comment, whether that's an email, whether that's a shout out. Somebody is taking the time to interact and talk about your brand. And that's really where you have to focus to get a true decent market strategy, but also to get your brand out there, right? My green shoes, when I wore those at Capitol Records, the main thing I stayed atop of people's mind was it wasn't just the green shoes, but they were talking about me without me being there. So a perfect example of this, like I was saying in the first part, how the VP and the executives, when my last day was sending me, pictures of them being in green shirts on my last day, even though they weren't at the office. But I asked one of them one time, I said, how are you remembering me so well? And he said, well, what you've done is you've created involuntary memory. So he says, when I'm out and about, Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset, I see a green Ferrari. Oh, I always talked about you. I was like, oh, there's this intern that always wears green shoes, you know, where I'm at right now. And so that's the same concept, right? He was talking about me without really thinking about it. It was the green shoes, the connection to the green, the connection to the color. So whenever he saw something green, regardless wherever he was at, he thought of me. That's kind of what you want to do. That's the whole idea of the green shoes method, right? You're imprinting yourself so much into somebody's mind that they think about you even when they don't want to think about you, right? So that's that. This is where that starts. That's where the deeper connection starts. That's where the community. That's why it's very important to create community, because that's where you start embedding yourself in people's mind and memory, and that's really what you want. Brand advocacy. So that's the same concept where people are talking and promoting your message without you having to do anything. They just go out and they say, hey, you know, so and so is a great brand, a great service. It's great. Testimonials are good too, right? But you have to ask for those. When someone is actually just out there doing it on their own, when you're on your social media and you see all these tags and you didn't ask and you didn't pay anybody to do that, that's which the ultimate goal is where you want to get to, right? Brand advocacy. And you don't need a lot of people doing that, right? Now, if you can have a lot of people doing that, that's awesome. But getting to that level doesn't require a lot. You just need a dedicated community who likes what you're doing and that feels engaged with what you're doing, right? And through that, now you have a pipeline, right? Sales is the lifeblood for any business, right? Without sales, like we were talking about, comparing it to a person, sales are your legs. So without sales, your business can't move. It can't go anywhere. It's stagnant. So understand your community is your pipeline. And the more that you put into your community and the larger your community grows, the more now you can go into and sell your product or services, whatever you're doing. But once again, you have to be careful with the fine line when it comes to communities, because if your community becomes a sound off board where you're just selling, people are going to see right through that. So there also has to be just engaging conversation, right? There has to be general conversation going on when you're not selling anything. But ultimately, you have to understand as a business, you have to leverage your community. And the community, as far as marketing is concerned, is to drive your sales, is to create leads and sales and create that deeper connection. So the more you invest in building those relationships and building out your community, the greater your return you're going to see. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these bigger brands starting to do this now, because it used to be you didn't have to do that, right? But things change. Like I said, things change, especially now in the woke generation. They want to feel connected to your brand, and there is no customer loyalty now. It's not guaranteed. So people aren't going to come back just because you offer a great service or just because you're good at what you do. There has to be a little bit more to that. So you have to go above and beyond the traditional. And another perfect example, I always like to implement this type of stuff. And what I'm telling you, I do it myself. So it's not just a bunch of theory. But the workbook, right? The Green Shoes Method workbook, that wasn't something that they asked me to do, but we did that, right? Because that creates a deeper connection. Now you'll have a deeper connection with what I've done, what I'm doing here with the webinar, simply because you have something that tells a story that you can connect with that helps you in your business. I don't have to be there. You can just look at that workbook and create a strategy now in some way, shape, or form, right? It may not, it may work, it may not, but ultimately it'll help you get started. And that's the whole point of that, right? So it's a pipeline. It helps you understand and create that engaging content and that engaging community. So just think about that. Just think about ways and how you can create a deeper connection with your audience, because that's what they're seeking. And it's not expected from you, but it is expected from your target audience, if that makes sense. Nowadays, they want to feel connected to your brand. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to lose out on a lot of different potential, a lot of avenues that you can put your brand into, because people want to know that they can talk to your brand like a person, not sales, as a person. So just understand that has to be a part of your content creation as well. Every post that you put out there, how is it going to create an interaction, right? What do you want people to feel? What do you want people to do? And it can get very difficult. So that's why I don't want to get too much into the weeds on that, but just kind of creating that seed for you to understand that's what content is. It's a conversation between you and your end user, the audience that you're trying to target. That's all content is, right? Movies, TV shows, that's all content. But it's a conversation that you're having with the person watching it. A movie has a story, it has a beginning, it has an end. There's all this stuff that's going on And in your mind, you're just thinking it's entertainment, but there's a lot that goes behind that. Same with content. So just understand that you're doing a lot more than just posting a picture. You're doing that to communicate something to your audience. And the more you can understand that and think about that, the better off your marketing strategy and more effective you're going to be on social media. All right. So once again, diving more into how to implement and bring out your community. So building your brand community, there's a few different ways you can do that. Obviously, the easiest and straightforward way is a social media group, right? So you can create groups on LinkedIn, you can create groups on Facebook. So, and once again, these are just dedicated social media groups where the audience can connect, share experiences, that kind of stuff. And you see that, and you may be a part of groups already. You may be part of a few Facebook groups, a few LinkedIn groups. I am myself on LinkedIn. So just know that's easy and it's free, right? You don't have to pay to create a group, at least on Facebook and LinkedIn. You don't have to pay to do that. So that's something you can start doing right away. Hard part is getting people to join your group, right? That's a whole nother issue. But ultimately, just to get things started, creating that community, if you want, the easiest way is just creating a free group on Facebook and or LinkedIn, right? But there's a lot more that goes into that. So then thinking about your content, going into delving a little more deeper into just a regular post, then you have interactive content, right? And that's what we would call like polls, quizzes, contests that gives people something to do, right? Just like the workbook is more interactive, right? It gives you something to do. You read it, but then you actually, if you take it seriously, you're going to do something. You know, those 5 questions at the end of that workbook make you do something. That's my form of interactive content. And once again, I'm just showing you examples so you understand how to utilize this and how I'm utilizing this in my very own business and what I'm doing, right? So same concept. When you're creating a post, I when I was out here, when I first came back, one of the big things I used to go to, it was called 1 Million Cups. It's for entrepreneurs and small business owners to go and pitch and just get better at that. So one of the interactive content pieces is red or green. At the end of every presentation, after everything that somebody does, they just ask them that question of red or green. And what that means is basically red or green chili, right? And it doesn't matter. You can say red, you can say green. It really doesn't matter how you answer it. But what it does is it kind of connects you to New Mexico, right? Even if you're not from New Mexico, a lot of people are coming in, moving here, and this is their first interaction with a New Mexican audience, or they're trying to introduce something to a community. So that red or green just kind of connects people, right? It's like, oh, okay, because green chili, so or red chili, same concept. So once again, that's that interactive content. So what can you develop in your content to be more interactive, to make your people participate and want to be involved with your brand and be involved with your content. So that's what interactive content is. And that's the best way I can break it down without getting too far into the weeds. Now, the next thing is loyalty programs. And you may or may not know, everybody's part of these loyalty programs, whether it's credit card loyalty programs, Target, you got all these big brands that have these type of loyalty programs where you spend so much there, you get points, you get cash back, whatever it is. That's what all that is, right? You're just rewarding customers for being loyal to you, for shopping with you, for being with you. And everybody is going to have to figure that out in their own way, shape, or form, right? Depending on what you do. But what can you do? You see a lot of times with car washes, right? You get, come there for 5 washes, you get the 6th one free, something like that, right? Just something that keeps you coming back. A lot of gamification. What's called gamification is where you're gamifying, awarding people based off of what they're doing. That's all that is, because you're just giving people a sense of achievement, right? Like, so when someone goes into your restaurant, for instance, and you give them an award for being the best customer or something like that, right? And then they get a free milkshake or something. I don't know, just kind of spitballing here, but just letting you know, the idea of a loyalty program is to strengthen the connection to your brand. That's all that's about, right? Loyalty, for continuously being my customer, for coming in and doing business with me specifically. I want to reward you for that. So you have to understand that also has to be a part of your marketing strategy and your content strategy, right? You want to let people know that you're going to reward them for working with you, for being a loyal customer. And regardless, and I'm just going to be real here, when it comes to loyalty programs, people are still going to go wherever they want to go. I mean, loyalty programs help retain, it helps bring business back, but it doesn't mean people are going to stay loyal, true and true all the way through, right? It's just those days are gone. So just know that no matter what you do, people are still going to go exploring. They're still going to go find other brands, but just know you want to keep them coming back as long as possible for whatever need that you're feeling for them or whatever want that you're feeling for them. So that's all a loyalty program is supposed to do. It's not going to keep people with you for a lifetime, but it is supposed to keep them longer than they normally would if you didn't have a loyalty program, right? And then last but not least is your community management. Like I said, building a community, starting a community is easy. You can create that in any Facebook group, any LinkedIn group you can create for free. The hard part is managing and bringing people into that group. So that's why community management is important. And that's why there's even whole consultancies now dedicated to just being community managers and consultants who specialize in building online communities. Like that's how big it is now. So there are people who literally just specialize in building your brand community and help you manage that community. So that's how big this is. So understand this is a big part of marketing now, community and community building and community management. That has to be part of your overall marketing strategy as well, which is why I put it into the workbook, your two-way communication. So when you delve deeper into that, understand that is your sales pipeline. Understand a lot is going to come from your community. And without your community, you're going to have to fight for every single lead, fight for every single person to come into your restaurant, come into your shop, whatever you're doing. It's just going to take a lot more if you don't have a loyalty program, if you don't have a form of community, you don't have any interactive content. I mean, you can still get sales, you can still get people coming in and buying your services. Not saying you won't, but it's just harder. And then it's harder to get them to come back. So if you're not doing this, you're just going to create, it's already hard doing business in general. So if you want to make it harder for yourself, don't do any of this. And guarantee you it's going to be a lot harder for you to achieve any sales, for you to achieve any kind of customer loyalty without any of this. So just know this is a big part of implementing your green shoes method, implementing your marketing strategy is community. That's why I have so many slides on it, because I'm trying to hammer into you guys to understand it's not just about photos. It's not just about posting. There's a whole lot that goes into it. And the bigger picture here is the community. All social media is a community. Instagram is a big community. Facebook is a big community, right? And then it allows you to create a community within a community. That's all social media is. So if you're leveraging social media correctly, you are trying to create community. Those who use it just to promote and sell and sell and sell. Don't get me wrong, you can make a ton of money doing that. I mean, you're going to spend, that's what they're supposed to do, right? Ads and all that stuff. But ultimately, community is going to help you take that back into your brand. Because if all you're doing is ads, then you're basically a slave to that, right? You're a slave to Google ads, you're a slave to Instagram, all of that. But when you have a community for your brand, specifically for your brand, you can run ads, you can do a lot of different stuff. But when you have a community, now you have a pipeline. That's the biggest thing. You have a way to delve back into your community, delve back in, reach out to your customer. And if you have a new product, you have something that you want to introduce, you can now test that in your community. You can say, hey, we have something new. We want to give you guys the first dibs at it. Thank you for being loyal. Check this out. We'll send you a free sample, we'll send you a free, whatever it is. But it gives you immediate feedback without having to spend any money. So you don't have to spend a ton of money to get what you need. So that's why communities are important, because the bigger your community is and the more you put into building that community, the less you're going to have to spend on the ads, the less you're going to have to spend on all that extra stuff that does this, that's supposed to do the same thing, right? So just understand, that's why I put so many slides on this, just so you understand community is a big part of implementing your social media strategy. All right, so now we're going to get into the weeds just a little bit, but what I wanted to do when it comes to metrics, because metrics, there's so many different metrics out there. I decided to take the ones that are most relevant in my mind anyway, and show you guys what those mean and show you how to track those, because ultimately any business owner needs to be focused on these few metrics. And there's a lot of different metrics you can focus on depending on what your business is. But in the terms of marketing and understanding if your marketing strategy is effective, these are the ones that are going to help you really understand. So The metrics that matter: customer acquisition costs. So for those who don't know, that's just basically telling you how much it costs you to get a new customer. At the end of the day, a customer lifetime value helps you understand how much or how valuable a customer is to you over time, right? When you build that relationship, that community, what does each member in your community bring to your brand and revenue, right? So that's the lifetime value. Depending on how long your customer stays, how much money do you make off of one customer? And the more you understand that, the better understanding you'll have of how many customers you need to meet to reach your goal, right? Customer retention rate is very important as well. How long the customers stay with you and what percentages fall off. You're always going to have fall off, right? It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, how great you are. Nobody's going to stay with you forever. So just understand that when you understand what your retention rate is, though, then you understand what that fall off is. And I'll show you that. And then last but not least is the net promoter score. So when you want people talking about your brand, you want people doing all this stuff without you having to pay them for it and all this stuff, that's what the net promoter score is. It helps you gauge customer loyalty and how willing people are to recommend your brand to others. So with those four, what I'm going to do is break down one by one. So what we're going to do first, we're going to start off with the customer acquisition cost. And the easiest way to think about it is, I'll give you an example, but the formula for customer acquisition costs is total customer acquisition cost divided by total customers acquired. All right. So let's say your company, they spend $10,000 on marketing and sales in a quarter, right? And you acquired 50 new customers during that time. So what was the total customer acquisition cost? Well, you do $10,000 because that's what you spent in marketing and sales for marketing during that time frame. And then you acquired 50 new customers and you divide that by 50. So $200. So basically each new customer costs you $200. That $10,000, $200 is what costs you to get per customer. So 50 new customers, $200 per customer. So hopefully that's making sense. It takes a little time. I'm just kind of blasting through this to give you guys the core, and feel free to go back and look at that. But ultimately, that's understanding what it costs you to acquire customers is very important, right? Because the higher the cost, hopefully, if it's costing you $200 to get a customer, I hope you have a high-end product or service, right? Because that's a lot of money to acquire a customer. If your product is $10 and it's costing you $200 to get that customer, then obviously you got to change something, because that's too high a cost for a $10 product or $10 service, right? It just doesn't make sense. So once again, that's why these numbers are important, because you have to understand, wow, why am I paying $200 to sell somebody $10 worth of stuff, right? And I'm just using that as a crazy example, but once again, that's why it's important to understand what does it cost to get a customer in the door, right? All right, so the next one, customer lifetime value, which is also pretty important because it's going to help you understand how much a customer means to you, right? So, and that formula is the average customer value times the average customer lifespan. So once again, breaking it down as an example, so let's say you know and understand that your average customer spends $100 a year with your company, and the average customer stays with you for 2 years. So this is pretty simple, right? So you would just take $100, because that's what the average customer spends you per year, and you times that by 2 years, because the average customer stays with your company for at least 2 years. So the customer lifetime value for one of your customers is $200, right? Simple math. I want to keep it simple here, but that just helps you understand. Okay, so every customer, on average, doesn't mean this will happen, but it's just on average. When you understand your customer, it means they're spending $200 with you, and that's what an average customer means to your business. So just once again, that's why these metrics are important, because it helps you really understand your business and how your business makes money, which is the lifeline and lifeblood of any business, right? So that's why I wanted to put that in there, because once you understand how much a customer actually means to your business and how much you're spending on bringing in that customer, then you can really, really start targeting and bringing down cost and helping to understand what you need to change in order to bring down your customer acquisition costs and then bring up your customer lifetime value, right? Now, if you're spending $200 to bring in a customer and they're spending $500 in a lifetime, you're still getting, that's a profit, right? $200 to make $300, not bad, right? But if you're spending $200 and then they're only staying with you, each customer is only $200, then you're breaking even, right? So once again, understanding these numbers, very important to a marketing strategy and to your business, right? Marketing is how your business is going to move. So understand, without it, it's going to be very tough. All right, so this is going to get a little more intricate, but this is the customer retention rate. So this is understanding how long a customer will stay with you month to month, year to year, and what's that fall off rate that I was talking about, right? So just breaking this down simply, E is the number of customers at the end of the period, N is the number of new customers acquired during the period, and S is the number of customers at the start of the period. So the formula is E minus N divided by S times 100. And like I said, this gets kind of crazy, so don't want to get too much into the weeds. This will be available for you to look at later. But just for as a quick example, let's say you started a month with 100 customers, you acquired 20 new customers during the month, and ended the month with 110 customers, right? So because you started the month with 100 customers and you ended it with 110. So remember, E was the number of customers at the end of the period. So you'll see here 110 minus N, right, which is the number of new customers acquired during the month, which was 20, right? And then you divide that by the number of customers at the start of the period, right? So that was 100. So just to give you that idea, so you take 90 divided by 100, you times it by 100, it's 0.9, then you times that by 100, that's 90%. Ultimately, what that means is month to month, you retain 90%. So 10% of your customers fall off month to month. So that 10% is where you have to basically acquire. You need to acquire 10% more, right? If you acquire 100 customers a month, 10 fall off, that's 10%. Then you know every month you need to at least bring in 10 customers, right? So to replace those 10% that's going to fall off. And like I said, it gets really, really intricate. It can get really complicated. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible as I can. But ultimately, these numbers will help you determine what you need to do and how you can sustain and how you can make your business grow. So this is, to me, a very important part and a very important metric to track your customer retention rate, because that's going to help you understand what's falling off, what do you need to acquire, and how do you sustain your business, right? So that's why I feel this is one of the more important metrics to track. And then last but not least was your net promoter score. So that's when people are willing to talk about your brand. So this one I've broken up into 2 slides, but to help you understand basically a survey. So the NPS survey is basically when companies send out to you, and you probably got this numerous times from different companies, and you may or may not have completed their survey, but they'll usually ask you, like, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend our company, product, service to a friend or colleague? That's what that is. They're trying to see how willing you are to promote and refer their brand. So a promoters is a 9 to 10 typically. This is on average, right? So these are your loyal customers. So if someone says 9 or 10, that means they're highly likely to promote your brand. Now, passive is around 7 to 8. So these are your neutral customers. These are the people kind of like in between, like you're okay, you're not bad, but you're not good in their mind, right? So somewhat satisfied, but not necessarily enthusiastic. And then detractors are the people who totally like, nope, don't like you, not going to happen. That's your 0 to 6. Those are your unhappy customers. Those are people unlikely to recommend your brand and potentially, harm your brand, talk negative, word of mouth, all that stuff that's on social media. These are the detractors. So you have to make sure that you're kind of maintaining a certain level, understanding what these mean. So this is just giving you an idea of the actual survey and what the numbers mean. And, some people might tweak it, say, oh, promoter is 8 to 10. I mean, you can do what you want, but these are the average. So I just work off of the averages of what everyone else is doing. So this is giving you an idea. If you want to give your brand a little leniency, if you want to say someone rates you an 8, that's still good. That's up to you. But typically that's someone who's in between. They're not really hardcore promoters. So how do you understand the numbers? So this is showing you how to do that. And that's literally it. That's the basic survey. Everybody can do that, right? Whether you're a service, whether you're a product, you can ask people how likely are they to recommend it, and just ask them from a 0 to 10. That's a 1-question survey, right? And you can get these numbers. So how do you break down those numbers after they answer your survey? So once let's say you surveyed 100 customers and you receive the following responses, right? So once again, like I said, promoters are your 9 to 10. So 35 customers rated your product, service 9 to 10. 20 customers rated it passively 7 or 8. So that's your in between, not good nor bad, right? And then 45, that's your detractors. Those are people who just don't like your brand. Not going to happen. So how do you calculate that? So then you basically don't worry about your passives, because your passives, you just got to figure out how to sway them either way, right? Whether they're bad, whether they want to be promoted, whether they want to detract, you can't have them in the middle, right? But people are always going to be in the middle. That's going to happen. But your NPS calculation is basically you take whatever percentage and subtract that from your promoted percentage minus your detracted percentage. So in this case, 30, it's 100 customers. We're keeping the math simple, right? 35 customers, that's 35% are your promoters, but 45 out of 100 detracted, right? So that's 45. So you take 35%, which is your promoters, minus 45% of your detractors. That gives you a negative 10%. So ultimately, in this example, what that means, if you fall below zero, it just means that a significant portion of your customers are dissatisfied with whatever you're offering. So if you understand that, obviously you want to change that, because you don't want to have all these people talk bad about your brand. So that's why this, to me, is one of the most important metrics to measure when it comes to whatever you're offering, because no matter how good you think you are, your services or whatever, it's all going to come down to what people actually will say about you. And this is a big determination. So anything below zero is bad, basically, at the end of the day. So the higher you can get on this NPS score, the more likely it is that somebody is going to go online and just praise your brand, talk about your brand. That's that community. That's what people just going, hey, you guys are awesome, blah, blah, blah. So just understand that this NPS score is very vital. It's a very vital portion of your marketing strategy, because at the end of the day, if you're doing all this stuff, you're bringing in customers, you're doing all this, but then ultimately they won't come, they're detracting, right? In this case, they don't like it, they don't like what you're doing, then all that effort goes to waste. You're going to continuously have to fight to bring in new customers because these customers don't like what you're offering. So understand that this NPS score, and it doesn't even have to be your service. It could be the way they were treated. There's a whole lot of different things. That's why you have to really get into the mentality and thinking how people think and understand what their needs are. That's why in part one, I talked about the 6 basic human needs. If you understand what human beings want in general, and then you cater your business as that, like a person would. Your business is extension. It's its own person. It's its own entity. That's why I was trying to get you guys to think in that fashion, because you are dealing with people. NPS score is dealing with people, what people think of you. So ultimately, maybe personally, you don't care what people think about you, but business wise, you have to care what your customers feel and think about you, because these are the ones who are going to keep your company alive. So NPS score are very important. All right, so wanted to kind of wrap things up here with an actual case study that we're actually doing for a client of mine through a consultancy firm. They're called Free T. They have a patented product. So the Free T is basically a patented T-shirt. And what they did is they took the slit of a T-shirt and patented. And it doesn't have to be a slit on just a T-shirt. It could be anything, a jersey, anything. However, they ended up getting 12 different configuration patents on the split. And so this is just one of those splits that you see here. So when we talk about the green shoes marketing strategy, right? So one of the first things, what was their green shoes? Well, the first thing that stands out automatically is the patent, right? The patent is what makes them different. It's not just a t-shirt, it's a patented t-shirt, right? And the patent and the t-shirt hasn't been patented in over 100 years. So that by itself is a great selling point for these shirts, right? So their biggest challenge when they first came to me was they were trying to license this product. They're trying to get it, larger brands to take it because they have the patent, and they want to sit back and collect royalties. The problem with it is they didn't have any sales, right? So, and they're trying to launch this product without any sales. And the problem is no matter what you're doing, doesn't matter how awesome it is. Like I said, if you don't have any data, it makes it harder. Like, don't get me wrong, there are people who will license and take on your product without sales, but in this case, it's a unique t-shirt, but it's not something that's so unique, right? It's just a t-shirt ultimately, right? It's like, okay, it looks like a button up, right? I can just get a button up, same concept, right? So that's why I knew they needed sales. They needed something that would get it to that point where people will license it, because it's not unique enough that people would just license it by itself. So ultimately, what we decided to do to make this product, take it beyond just being unique, but once again, beyond availability, right? Thinking above and beyond what people want, that certainty, that uncertainty. So what we decided to do was create a strategy to make this more interactive. Once again, this is that two-way communication. So how do people interact with the Free T and the brand? Well, we made a DIY, do-it-yourself kind of concept and this is our summer launch. So basically, local artists who create these patches, right? And basically, what people can do, they get their free tee and they put these patches on these shirts and they create their own shirt. And we'll have different patches there that they can put on the shirt. But it's just bringing back that whole ideology of creating something that's you and it's specifically for you. So what it does, it allows people to express themselves through their patches, but it also creates a kind of an identifier for themselves, right? Like this is my shirt because it's patented t-shirt. Nobody else is going to have that shirt literally right now. Nobody. So when you create your free tee and you do this stuff, it is literally your shirt. Nobody is going to have that shirt. So we really want to run with that exclusivity concept and the idea that you can create this on your own. This is your shirt, run with it and express yourself. So with that strategy, what we've done now is we've helped them get sales. So we had a goal of about 1,000 units. And now we're about 50%, a little over 50% of that 1,000 unit goal. And we haven't even launched yet, right? We haven't even done our official summer launch. So the idea here is once again, just showcasing how I'm utilizing the strategy, the Green Shoes approach to anything that I'm doing, especially helping people out. So this is a company that didn't have any sales, didn't have anything, right? They just had a patented product that they thought they could just license without any sales. And then we took it and in less than 2 months, we had them over 50% of their goal of 1,000 units, right? So we sold over 500 units already. So once again, I like to utilize what I talk about and utilize what I'm doing as opposed to just talking about methods and strategies that I'm not using. So once again, everything that I'm telling you and everything from part 1 to part 2, the workbook, this is all stuff I'm doing, right? The Green Shoes method is an actual strategy that I do myself, right? It started with Capital Records, but it's helped me in so many different ways in business. So ultimately, just wanted to showcase to you as well, everything I've taught to you, or everything I've showed you here is the same concept. And I'm just utilizing it to help other people. So if you utilize it to really help your business, it could be effective. I'm not saying it will. I'm not here to tell you this is going to work, but I'm just saying we're utilizing the strategies and what we're doing, and it is truly helping other brands develop themselves, create an avenue to really create sustainability for the brand. So that just wanted to share a case study with you, helping you understand. So now wrapping everything up, obviously the biggest thing in developing your content, getting ready to get out there and really revamp your online strategy. Even if you already have pages and you already have content, you still want to, revamp that idea, revamp what you're doing for this new generation and for the target audience that you're targeting, right? So first and foremost, just wrapping everything up, obviously understanding who you're talking to. Doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're selling, you have to understand and have a target audience. It can't be the world, it can't be everybody. You have to talk to a select group of people. Yeah. And then it grows from there, right? Crafting compelling content that resonates with your target audience is very important. Building that thriving brand community, because those are going to be the people that really create and sustain your brand. So you don't have to continuously go out and bring in new people. And then obviously implementing effective marketing campaigns that once again resonate with your target audience, tell compelling stories, and help you build your brand community. So that's in conclusion to everything. Wrapping up, implementing your Green Shoe strategy. Hopefully this has helped in some way, shape, or form. And as Gabriella mentioned, if you need help with this, feel free to go through MBDA, and we can help you with all this when it comes to page profile optimization and setting up and getting your content strategy going. So with that, I thank everyone for your time and hand it back over to you, Gabriella.
Thank you so much for your time, Emmanuel. And this was very detailed with a lot of really great information for, anyone that's thinking about being systematic really in addressing, customer retention and really thinking about the surveys and how to, really take it all in and make sure that it's beneficial and it's helpful information for you. So if there is anyone that has any questions, please add it to the chat. This is your time with Emmanuel right now. But if not, of course, the video will be posted on our YouTube channel for the New Mexico Minority Business Development Agency. And this presentation will be shared with all of those that registered for the webinar this morning. So if there is no questions, Emmanuel, thank you so much for your time. I know that there's already some folks interested in the social media support, so they will be connecting with you shortly. So thank you,
definitely.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.